My flight is booked and we leave today.
Take the exit, then keep right onto Causeway Boulevard South.
So, of course, the next morning, I had to get my coffee fixed. I was a little jet lagged, got my coffee fixed. And, of course, I kept hearing about beignets. Make sure you try the beignets when you're there. Some people call them, like, powdered donuts. They're definitely not powdered donuts.
Watch us, record it. We do.
Okay, at the same time?
That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Where y'all from?
California. So we went to morning call, got some beignets, got some coffee. He showed us around, gave us some behind the scenes look, talked a bit about the history of the, I guess call it a cafe.
1870, family business, fourth generation. We moved around, moved to Medellin, we moved back to New Orleans. We've been here about 3 years.
Wow. Nice.
Sugar Bowl, the college championship game. We actually come through every night. Originated coming from the early 1800s.
Wow.
As you see what's on the coda, we're having a meeting to discuss this championship college game.
Wow.
And they decided to call it the what?
Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl.
We do it old school, sourdough beignets. Nobody does sourdough beignets. All the other places.
That's why it tastes different.
I really loved the exterior. It was beautiful. I love all the greenery, all the plants. The vibe was really, really nice. So he just kind of gave us a backstory of the history of the place. We tried the beignets, and he was explaining to us how his beignets are different from everybody else's beignets that's around town. So after we finished up our somewhat breakfast, our continental breakfast, we jumped on a streetcar and headed down Canal Street. The streetcar was really fun. It was really cool. It's another touristy thing that people were telling me, you got to make sure you take the streetcar. So it was really fun. Very similar to like the light rail here in California. But I think the stops are more often. It's vintage. It's older. So it's got a little different vibe to it. It was a lot of fun.
So I guess they have a tour.
Mm-hmm. They have a lot of tour guides that will come and bring you. Not just one, but like multiple. You mean from the park itself?
Yeah.
Oh. So we took the streetcar, went to the Louis Armstrong Park, checked out Congo Square, and headed to the Treme part of town. I guess it's called a district, or not a parish. I'm still learning, y'all. But we went to Treme and headed to the museum over there. So once we got through the park, we walked down to the Backstreet Cultural Center, which I have a tendency to call it the Treme Museum. Unfortunately, you cannot take photos, you can't take videos or anything in here, but she did allow me to take some notes. So the curator and founder of the museum, his name was Sylvester Francis, also known as Hawk. He was a videographer and a photographer, and he would take videos of the Mardi Gras and of the second line tours that people would have. And each year, you would have to make a new costume for Mardi Gras. You cannot reuse or repurpose anything, not a bead, not anything, and everything is hand sewn. So people started donating to him because he was collecting things from each year to each year, really curating and saving and archiving his collection of videos and films and costumes. People started donating to him what they had from previous years as they were making new ones. So that is what became the Backstreet Museum, which his daughter now runs since he has passed away. So I really got to learn a lot about Mardi Gras culture, the history of why people, African Americans, would what they call, I guess, blackface, dress in Indian attire. And from what I was told is it was basically paying homage, paying tribute to those who had basically taken them in and protected them, or either sometimes they would intermarry with them, the Native Americans that were already there before them during enslavement as well as during Reconstruction. So they were the ones who would come in, help them, provide for them. And then, of course, I learned about second line, which they would have second line funerals. If someone had passed or someone needed money for something, they would use second line. And it's still a tradition to this day that they have every week. They would use second line as a way to raise funds and to raise money for the community. So I thought this was just really amazing. It's not typically something that a lot of people do. So I would highly suggest, if you are in New Orleans and you want to get that experience outside of the French Quarters, head over to Treme and walk the streets over there. It's almost like things are stuck in time. I absolutely love it. It was a really awesome experience.
Let me start by saying that. Let me get my guy to drop it, and I'm going to come back.
Okay.
Hello, family who is not here in New Orleans with us today. Welcome to Calas Cafe. Let's talk about the significance of a Calas Cafe. Calas was born out of a place of my company called Harvest Nola, which is a food security company. We founded Calas Cafe out of that entity simply because food security includes our very own food history. Food has been used to identify and tell the stories of cultures around the world, so it was important for us to make sure the story of Calas was included in the ongoing story of New Orleans, and that people have access to this amazing piece of food history. Let's talk about Calas. Calas is a food item that looks like our beloved dish called the beignets. My favorite thing to tell everyone is we are absolutely not the beignet. We, however, are made with cooked rice. We're an older tradition than the beignet. Calas came to New Orleans by enslaved West Africans in the 1800s. We live in a city that highlights the French heritage, the Spanish heritage. It was important to me in food security for the work that we do that we were able to tell the story of West Africans and Caribbeans here in New Orleans during that time and the amazing work they did in pursuit of freedom and economic security. Again, Calas looks like beignet. My favorite thing to say is it's absolutely not. It is made with cooked rice, came to New Orleans by enslaved West Africans. They sold it on the streets as a popular street food. Women and men, largely women, selling this dish from St. Louis Cathedral to Congo Square, earning enough money, the money that they were able to keep and not have to give over to the person that owned them, the money that they were able to keep. It was them determining which woman and her family's freedom was urgent for whatever reasons. Maybe it was violations, maybe it was a risk of somebody being expired, and they used that money to purchase the freedom of enslaved women from the Spanish here in New Orleans through a process called manumission. So the very dish that we serve here, represents that journey of West Africans here in New Orleans in the 1800s and their pursuit of freedom and economic security and ultimately rendering that outcome. Welcome to Calas Cafe. Our social media is on Instagram, calascafe.com, CALAS. I'm so happy for this sister to be here and reconnecting with this piece of heritage that she didn't even know exists. And boy, our job is to educate all of the public and let them know what it is that we're serving here, because this reflects the great work of enslaved Black Africans here in New Orleans in the 1800s. We look forward to you all following our story, our page, and look forward to seeing you when you're in New Orleans.
This is for real, like, for real.
What did you put in yours? The lemon?
Yeah. I haven't tried a pistachio yet. I don't think I'm gonna order any more beignets while I'm here.
You won't be the first person to have done that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. Don't tell anybody, okay? But Calas is way better than beignets. That's all I got to say. Hands down, the Calas that I had, I got to learn how to make it. It's better than any beignet that I tried.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, like, talk about a dish that represents history and all of its complexities.
Yeah.
Those flavors are the same historic flavors that traveled the world.
So to wrap up this day, after that we jumped back on the streetcar train and we headed to the New Orleans Historical Collection. It was a really great museum. I learned a lot of things, but it wasn't what I thought, and I don't know if it's because the exhibits change or something. I was hoping to see a lot more maps and a lot more history in terms of maybe, I don't know, the development of New Orleans. Exhibits were really great. They have an exhibit about incarceration that's there. They had an exhibit about trains, which was pretty interesting since I'm working on a mural that has to do with trains right now. But it was really, really great. Just not what I expected or what I don't know. I guess not what I expected or what I was hoping for at that time. But nevertheless, it was great. I picked up a couple of souvenirs from there. We left and we headed to lunch to find some more gumbo, and it started pouring down rain.
Yeah, that's true.
This way, babe. Hood's too big for my head. Can't see. So for our second day in New Orleans, my husband had got this list from a coworker of his. This was a huge long list of like suggested places to go, things to do. And on that list was a place called Ron's. He was like, Ron's has the best food, hands down. Go to Ron's, go check out Ron's. And I left my husband, being the foodie that he is, in charge. I left him in charge to kind of dictate where we were going to eat, what we were going to check out in terms of food while we were in New Orleans.